Now, this lecture focuses on the process of testing low fidelity prototypes to gather feedback and identify areas for improvement. Now, you'll learn to conduct usability testing sessions, collect qualitative and quantitative feedback, and analyze the results. Now, by engaging potential users, you'll be able to gain insight into your app's design, the navigation, and the functionality effectiveness. So here are a few of our learning objectives. We're going to try to understand the purpose and benefits of usability testing for low fidelity prototypes in an app design process. We're going to plan and conduct usability testing sessions with potential users to evaluate app navigation and functionality. We'll collect and organize qualitative and quantitative feedback from usability testing, analyze testing results to identify design flaws, usability challenges, and other areas of improvement, and then develop actionable recommendations for refining the low fidelity prototype based on the user's feedback. So, what is user testing? So, user testing involves observing how real users interact with a product to identify issues, gain insights, and improve its usability, design, and functionality. Now, in mobile app design, user testing refers to the process of evaluating an app's usability, design, and functionality by involving real users. Now, this process involves conducting tests and observations to see how individuals, actually use the app in real-world scenarios. So there's different aspects of user testing. One is like I said, the usability. So this aspect of the user testing in a mobile app development examines how easy and intuitive an app is to use. So it's going to involve understanding if users can easily navigate through the app, accomplish tasks, and if the app's interface is going to be user friendly. Now, user testing focuses also on the visual designs or elements, the layouts, and the overall aesthetic appeal of the app. So it aims to understand if the design is engaging, if it's appealing, and if it aligns with the preferences of the target audience. And then, as far as functionality, testing the functionality of the app is going to involve ensuring that all the features and the functionalities work as intended. It checks if the app performs tasks correctly without bugs or technical issues that might hinder user experience. Now, why wouldn't we test our own apps? New testers will more easily evaluate an app objectively as opposed to, say, the developer testing the app. Now, user testing goals for an app can change depending on where an app is in its life cycle. They can lean more towards validation and evaluating because user testing is an invaluable way to validate the mobile UX research and improve app design. Now, while user testing should be conducted, say, prior to launch, it shouldn't stop once, say, your app is live. User testing is a continuous process. So it's one of the best ways to continually improve your app's UI and UX design, especially if you've come out with, say, new updates and changes. So when you think about mobile testing, you want to ask, is the user testing fitting into the workflow? You know, do I have the right tools? And is mobile app testing leading to a better app? Overall, app user testing and mobile app development is going to be critical, as it's going to help identify those potential problems. It's going to help gather valuable feedback and help us to make necessary improvements that are going to be able to create a better user experience. Now, both in-person and remote testing have their advantages and limitations. The choice between the two methods often depends on the specific goals of the testing and the resources available. So let's first look at in-person user testing and let's think about some of the pros. So one, in-person testing is going to allow for a direct and personal connection, with the participants, which is going to foster a more comfortable environment for sharing honest feedback. Then, observing participants in person will allow us to be able to gauge body language. So, body language and facial expressions in the real world, they provide valuable insight into like the different reactions and also any frustrations that are being felt. And then also doing this in person, doing in person user testing, testers can take the necessary time with the participants, explaining the task thoroughly and ensuring a more comprehensive understanding. They also can see the reactions up close. Proximity is going to allow for a closer examination of how users interact with the product, which is going to enable detailing or more detailed observations. Now, some of the drawbacks or cons of it, because it is in person, there may be logistical challenges. It may require like physical coordination and space. Making scheduling and organizing sessions a little bit more complex. In-person testing can also be a little costlier due to travel, facilities that you might have to use, and other related expenses. And then testing may be confined to a specific, say, geographical area, which is going to restrict diversity in the pool of participants. Now let's examine as far as remote user testing. So some of the advantages are, first of all, it's going to take less time. Okay, remote sessions are often more efficient as they eliminate that travel time, and allow for a higher value volume of tests in a shorter duration. Also, remote, you can do unmoderated testing, which is going to provide a lot more flexibility and enable users to interact with the product at their own convenience. Now, some of the drawbacks is that remote testing may make it challenging, say, to dive a little deeper into the participants' feedback or clarify unclear points, after the session. Also, in remote testing, gauging body language or facial expressions is going to be limited. You may potentially miss some of the nonverbal cues. And then it might be more challenging to observe the user's reaction or their interaction, with the product in detail due to the physical distance. And then last, the remote nature might reduce the personal connection between the facilitator and the participant, which could affect the depth of the feedback. Now let's talk about some of the types of tests. So there is some usability testing specifically tailored for mobile applications. One is the 5-second test. And so this test, what it does is it aims to evaluate the clarity and the initial impact, or like the first impression of a design within a short time frame. So users are shown like a screen for 5 seconds and then asked about what they recall or noticed during the brief exposure. Now, it helps assess the visual impact and the immediate elements that stand out to the users. Then there's the click test. So the click test measures the ease and efficiency with which the user can accomplish, say, a specific task. So users are typically asked to perform like particular actions, like maybe clicking a button, navigating to certain sections or something. And the success and the time taken to complete these tasks are recorded. Now, it helps in assessing the app's navigation flow and the effectiveness of the user's interface and, say, guiding the users through tasks. Now, the other one is, or another test is the question test. So this test involves asking users questions about like mock-ups or wireframes. And it helps to gather like qualitative feedback and insight about the user's perception, their preferences, and their understanding of the design. It helps in identifying also potential issues, or maybe user preferences and other areas of improvement. Then there's the navigation flow test, and this test observes how users navigate through an app. So testers will track the user's interaction with the app, including like the paths taken, the ease of finding features, and any issues encountered during navigation. It helps in evaluating the intuitiveness of the app structure and the flow. Then there's the preference test. And in a preference test, users are asked to kind of choose between two different versions of the design or specific elements within the app. And so it helps in understanding users' preferences, determining like which design or features resonate better with the users, and guiding decisions regarding like design iterations or feature implementations. Now, I want you to consider also, which is more of a technique, is gamification. And it's often a popular way of, say, generating emotional engagement in usability testing. So, by incorporating like game like elements such as like progress bars, achievements, or challenges, testers are encouraged to actively participate in the testing process. Now, this can be done by employing like interactive elements such as like quizzes or interactive surveys within the testing process. Now, by creating a more engaging and interactive environment, it leads to an increased participation, more in-depth feedback, and then a more, say, enjoyable testing experience for the users. Now, each type of usability task serves a specific purpose in evaluating different aspects of the mobile app's design, functionality, and user experience. So, using a combination of these tasks can provide like a comprehensive understanding of like the user's interaction and their preferences, also guiding improvements to create like more user-friendly and effective mobile apps. Now, at which stage of the project should I plan usability testing, you might be asking. So the timing of usability testing within a project is going to be crucial to ensure its effectiveness and efficiency. It's generally conducted after the solution has taken tangible forms such as wireframes or prototypes or mock-ups. Now, here's sort of a breakdown as to when to plan usability testing in a project. So one, after the initial design phase. So usability testing typically occurs after, say, the initial design phase when you have wireframes or maybe the initial prototypes have been created. And these early stage materials, they provide a tangible framework to assess the user's experience. Then there's also before final development. Now, it's conducted before, say, the final development stage in order to gather insight and feedback on the solution's user interface and functionality. And this allows for necessary adjustments to be made before, say, substantial development efforts are undertaken. And then usability testing is ideal, say, when the solution has tangible forms or prototypes, which include like the static or the interactive prototypes, when you have these ready. So these could be like throwaway prototypes, created for like maybe testing purposes, like the low fidelity prototype. Or it could be iterative ones that say represent the potential maybe final product. Now, the number of testers required for reliable usability testing of a mobile app can vary based on several factors. Now, where there's no fixed number that, say, guarantees complete reliability, a balance between resources, time, and the scope of the app's user base is going to be essential. It's not always necessary to have, say, a large group of users to test a prototype. Now, here's some considerations when determining the number of testers for a usability testing. Okay, so one, if the app is relatively simple or has a straightforward user flow, then a smaller number of testers, around maybe 5 to 8, might be sufficient to uncover like major usability issues. However, for more complex apps or those that are targeting a diverse user base, a larger pool of testers might be needed. And then we have to consider the diversity. The diversity of, say, the target audience is going to matter. If your app is meant for, say, a broad user base, having testers that represent different demographics, ages, technological proficiencies, and usage patterns, is going to be critical. A wider range of testers, maybe more like 10 to 15 or more, might be needed to capture diverse perspectives and potential issues that different user groups might encounter. Now, if usability testing is part of, say, an iterative process, starting with a small number of testers to identify major issues, and then iterating through multiple rounds of testing with, a few additional testers each time can be sort of like an effective strategy. So this approach allows for the identification, say, of new issues while validating the solutions applied from the previous testing rounds. And then, of course, limited resources and time might restrict the number of testers that you can engage. So in such cases, it might be more beneficial to focus on quality over quantity. Aim for a balance that allows for a comprehensive feedback without overwhelming your resources. Now, according to Jacob Nielsen, a usability expert, around 5 users are often enough to reveal major usability issues. However, more participants can uncover, of course, a wider range of issues. Now, recruiting participants for usability testing for your mobile app is going to involve several steps to ensure that you have a diverse and representative group of users. Here's some information about recruiting participants effectively. So, one is you want to define your user profile. Okay, so you want to identify the demographics and the characteristics of your target users. So consider age, gender, location, tech savviness, and other like relevant factors. And then you want to use various channels for recruitment. So, utilize like multiple channels to reach, potential participants. And these could include like maybe social media platforms, online forums or communities that are related to like your app's niche, email newsletters, or maybe a customer database, local community groups or meetups, professional networks, you know, or use your network. You may have a colleague that, has not taken part in the design of the product. Maybe your friends and family, or any acquaintance whose profile kind of corresponds to your target audience. And then you want to offer, incentives to encourage participation. And this could be monetary, compensation. It could be gift cards, discounts, or even like early access to the app. Incentives, they often attract like more participants. And then you want to design a screening survey to filter and select participants based on your defined user profile. So this survey should include questions about like their demographics, their mobile apps, mobile app usage, maybe the possibility that their experiences with, maybe similar apps, like they've had some experience with other apps. And then you want to clearly communicate the purpose, the process, and the expectations, of the usability test. You want to provide information on, how much time they have to commit to it, like maybe what the tasks are that they're going to be performing, and any technical requirements. Now, to conduct a successful usability testing, you want to carefully prepare, and that's going to be key. So let's break down the elements that you'll need to prepare. So you'll need to have testing material, you need to have a testing plan, and you need to have observation sheets. So let's talk about each one of these. So let's talk about the testing materials that you'll need. So first, let's look at, the prototype or the testing interface. So you want to ensure, that you have the version of the product that you're going to be testing. Again, this could be like maybe a wireframe, it could be a mock-up, or it could be a functioning prototype. Now, this is what participants will interact with during the test. And based on the goals of the test, you can select like which type of prototype or testing interface you'll need. So if you're checking, say, to see if the app is user friendly, then having a wireframe would be good. If you're checking to see what to validate, or maybe validating like visual appeal, then having a mock-up would be good. And then say if you want to test maybe the user flow, then having an interactive prototype is what you want to have. Next is you want to look at the testing scenarios. So you want to prepare, say, a set of tasks, okay, that you want your participants to complete during the testing material. So these tasks should reflect like a typical user's interaction and help evaluate the usability of the product. Next, you want to have consent forms or participant information. So having consent forms ready, say for the participants to sign is part of being prepared. Additionally, you want to prepare information sheets explaining the purpose of the test and say what participants can expect from it. So next is the test plan. Okay, so you want to plan an introduction to the test that explains the purpose and the scope. Brief your participants on like what they'll be doing and reassure them about the confidentiality of the test. Next, you want to outline the tasks participants are going to be performing. Specify the order and the detail, how these tasks should be completed. You want to include like various scenarios that maybe cover different functionality or features of the product. Then you want to prepare instructions for the person conducting the test, who's going to be like your facilitator, if that's not going to be you, on how to guide the participant, how to maintain a neutral stance, and then ensure that the test runs smoothly. Next, you want to plan the time for each task and for the entire session. And this is going to ensure that you don't run out of time and can cover all the aspects, all the essential aspects of the test. And then you want to include a section on how to conclude the test session. And this might include like a debriefing, asking for final feedback or even thanking the participants. And then there's your observation sheets. So you want to have a section to record like basic participant data, like their age, their gender, their occupation, so on and so forth, for better context when analyzing the results. You want to have task by task observation. So you want to create a section or columns to document participants' behavior, their success, their difficulties, their comments, and their feedback for each task. And then you want to allocate space for general observations or noteworthy points that say don't fit into like specific task categories. And then you want to have a section for the facilitator to note like any issues observed during the test or any additional comments regarding, say, the participants' behavior or their feedback. So post-test questionnaires are a way of gathering participant feedback, say after the practical interaction with the mobile app. So during this phase, you can ask them about their thoughts on specific processes, maybe colors or features within the app. The thing is, you might not think color is important, but it definitely is when it comes to accessibility. So pages like without ideal color contrast can be accessibility problems for like individuals with disabilities. So it's also interesting to know how participants might struggle, say, with a task during the task, but then they see it as effortless, when asked in the post-task questionnaire, or maybe vice versa. Now, these differing viewpoints, they provide valuable insight that kind of helps to better understand the significance of any issues and refine the overall test results. Also, the post-test questionnaires, they provide an opportunity to gather participants' opinions on aspects they not directly related to the test. This might include their feedback on like graphical variations, maybe other research ideas or their overall experience, say during a test. Now, you should always test your test. Okay, testing your test itself kind of helps in adjusting its duration, refining the number of tasks, maybe correcting unclear wording in tasks or questionnaire items, maybe having to reorganize materials or just reminding you of critical moments, requiring your participation. So, run a test to make sure that your actual test is going to run smoothly. Now, analyzing the results of a usability test is going to involve systematically reviewing the collected data to derive insight and make informed decisions about improving the user experience. So one, you want to gather all of the data from the usability test, including like observational notes, participant feedback, um, task success rates, time taken for tasks, and maybe any kind of recorded sessions. Then you want to look for recurring patterns or themes in the feedback and the observations. Then group those similar comments or issues together to identify like common user pain points. Then you want to classify the identified issues based on their severity and their frequency. Some issues might be more critical or they may occur frequently, um, indicating like a more significant impact on the user experience. Then you try to understand the root cause of reoccurring issues. Determine if they stem from maybe design flaws or from technical glitches or maybe a misunderstanding in the user interaction. Then you want to measure the identified issues against the initial usability goals set for the app. Assess how well the app aligns with these goals and where improvements are going to be needed. And then based on the analysis, you're going to propose solutions or recommendations to address identified issues. Now, this could include design modifications, feature enhancements, or maybe even functional changes. And then you want to summarize the findings in a comprehensive report that outlines the key issues, their severity, and then recommendations for improvement. Visual aids such as maybe graphs or charts can also help communicate the data effectively. And then last, you want to implement changes based on the recommendations and then retest the app to validate the effectiveness of the improvements. Now, after making revisions, say from a user test, you should always test the changes with maybe new and previous used testers. Now, in addition to providing documentations when discussing the conclusion of the testing, you should also begin by highlighting, say, the most positive feedback as it's going to hold significance and deserved emphasis. Then you want to address the critical issues that need resolution for the project success. And then after that, then you address the areas for improvement, which though not critical, still require attention. And then lastly, you want to mention neutral feedback, observations that are specific or maybe non-critical and may not say require immediate action. This is just a cute little cartoon that I found, but basically how not to user test. So you don't want to, like hover over your user, and say things like, what the heck? Why did you click that button? Are you some kind of idiot? Do you even know how to use a computer? These are things you don't want to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to include a little short video of actually going through a paper prototype, to just show you, how you can actually have someone navigate. Now remember, the paper prototype is one that we've drawn out. It's not anything that we've done, through any kind of system or anything. It's a low fidelity prototype. But I wanted to just show you an example of that for an app that I was planning called the Drink More Water app. And so it's an app where people would record, like, how much water they drank and kind of track that. So as I mentioned before in the test plan, you want to have your testing materials. So my testing material would be my low fidelity prototype. And you'll see how I kind of put it together so that I can allow kind of movement from screen to screen. And so a low fidelity prototype, again, it's a paper prototype. It's not one that's going to be interactive where they can actually press a button and something happens. I actually literally had to kind of move the screen, as they navigated through. But part of your test plan is you want to have your task list. So this is my task list. I'm asking, the user that's going to be testing to log that they drank 2 glasses of water, then to check to see how much water they've drank so far, change the goal for how much water they want to drink each week, go to the dashboard to see their daily intake. So, I would have that task list and then I would have them use the paper prototype to try to complete these tasks. And I would go in and I would observe, if it was easy. Was it easy for them to navigate to where they would log in their glasses of water? Is it easy for them to navigate to where they can see how much water they've drank? Is it easy for them to figure out how they would go in to change their goals for how much water they want to drink for the week? And is it simple for them to be able to go back to the dashboard to see their daily intake? And then that's what I'm going to use, and I'm going to analyze that to see if there's changes that need to be made to my low fidelity prototype moving forward, before I move into actually designing a medium fidelity prototype. So that's how we would do user testing through a paper prototype. Okay, and before I actually show you the recording of the user navigating through the paper prototype, I just wanted to show you the screen. So again, with a paper prototype, if you watch the previous video, you just want to scribble out, you want to do a rough draft of what each screen is going to look like. You don't want to put too much into it because you may find that there's a major problem, say, with one of your screens. You want to be able to, say, make a change, if you need to. So I can easily, these were on index cards. If I saw that there was a major change that I need to make, I could just ball up that index card and redesign it. So these are the screens that I'm going to be using, and the tasks that I listed a few on the previous slide. Um, I need to make sure that they can accomplish those tasks um, on the screens that I'm going to be using for my paper prototype. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the video.